The first time I noticed her, it wasn't because she was beautiful, it was because the entire classroom went silent the moment she walked in. Eleanor Hayes didn't raise her voice, didn't demand attention. She simply existed. And somehow, that was enough. I was 18, sitting in the last row, counting days until graduation, convinced that school had nothing left to teach me. I was wrong, completely wrong, because that year, I didn't just learn literature, I learned how dangerous emotions can be when they arrive quietly. Hayes taught English like stories were alive. She didn't explain novels, she felt them. When she spoke about love, loss, and regret, her eyes carried something unfinished, something heavy. I started staying after class, at first for grades, then for questions, and eventually for conversations that had nothing to do with the syllabus. We talked about books, dreams, and the fear of becoming ordinary. She never crossed a line, not once, and yet, every word she spoke pulled me closer. I told myself it was admiration, respect, gratitude, but admiration doesn't keep you awake at night, replaying someone's voice in your head. Respect doesn't make your chest tighten when you imagine never seeing someone again. Somewhere between Shakespeare and late afternoon sunlight through classroom windows, I fell in love with my teacher, and I hated myself for it. She sensed the change before I did. She became distant, professional, careful. The warmth was still there, but wrapped in walls. One afternoon, after class, she looked at me and said, "Some feelings are meant to teach us something, not to be acted on." Her voice didn't shake, but her hands did. That's when I realized something terrifying. I wasn't alone in this. From that day on, everything changed. She stopped letting me stay after class. Emails became formal. Conversations became short. It felt like punishment, but deep down, I knew it was protection for both of us. I tried to move on, tried to convince myself it was just a phase, a fantasy born from admiration. But feelings don't disappear just because they're inconvenient. Graduation came faster than I expected. On the last day, she handed me my final paper and said, "You have a future that doesn't need complications." I wanted to tell her she was the reason I believed in that future. I wanted to say her name the way it sounded in my thoughts, soft, personal, dangerous, but I didn't. I nodded, said thank you, and walked away like my heart wasn't breaking. Years passed, life happened, college, work, relationships that never quite felt complete. And yet, sometimes, when I read a book she once recommended, I wondered if she remembered me too, if she ever thought about the student who looked at her like she was the answer to every question. Then one evening, completely unexpected, I saw her again, a small bookstore, same calm presence, same eyes but tired now, older, human. We talked like strangers at first, then like people carrying unfinished sentences. She told me she had left teaching. I told her I had found my voice in writing because of her. There was no classroom now, no rules to hide behind, just two adults standing in truth. And still, she hesitated. "Some minds," she said softly, "shape who we are because we chose not to cross them." I realized then love isn't always about being together. Sometimes it's about who you become because you didn't. We didn't rush. We didn't confess dramatically. We walked, we talked, we healed. Months passed before either of us dared to ask the question that had waited years for permission. By then, the imbalance was gone. No authority, no fear, just two people who had grown separately, but in the same direction. When we finally admitted what we had once buried, it wasn't explosive, it was peaceful, mature, earned. Love didn't arrive like a storm, it arrived like understanding, and that made it stronger than anything reckless passion could have been. People think forbidden love is about breaking rules. They're wrong. Real love is about respecting them, even when it hurts, because if something is real, it doesn't demand destruction to survive, it waits. She once taught me that stories don't end where we want them to, but where they're meant to. And maybe that's why this story worked. Because we didn't steal moments, we didn't cross lines, we waited until love was no longer a risk but a choice. And when I finally held her hand, years later, I realized something beautiful. She didn't just teach me English. She taught me patience, integrity, and the kind of love that lasts.